Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into the hidden mechanics of how global wealth isn't just earned, but structurally protected from taxes and risk. We're going way beyond your standard savings accounts here. We're going to peel back the layers on the actual architecture of fortune using some seriously fascinating recent findings from a Senate Finance Committee investigation. You see, to really wrap our heads around this, we need a massive mindset shift. Think about it. Most of us go through life asking one basic question, right? How much do I earn? But the ultra-wealthy, they ask a completely different question. They're asking, how much do I legally keep? Because honestly, making the money is kind of the easy part. The real work is building the systems that protect it from taxes, inflation, and legal exposure. Let's look at a super simple comparison to make this concrete. Imagine two people, person A and person B, both earning exactly $100,000. Person A follows the linear path we're all taught. You earn it, you pay your taxes, you spend, and you save whatever happens to be left over, maybe 20 grand if you're lucky. But person B, they use financial architecture. Through legal structuring, they might legally keep 70 grand. Same exact income, totally different outcome. The secret sauce isn't grinding harder, it's structure. It's shifting from a linear financial path to a circular, layered one. Section 1, the invisible walls of wealth. So how is this massive difference in retained wealth actually built in the real world? Well, it's all about indirect ownership. Notice how the individual, you, doesn't actually directly touch the asset. Instead, you build firewalls. A trust owns a holding company, and that holding company owns the property or the investment. Why jump through all these hoops? Because direct ownership is incredibly risky. If you get sued or when you pass away, assets you own directly are completely exposed to liabilities and estate taxes. But indirect ownership, that uses these invisible legal walls to shield everything. It's literally a system designed from the ground up to prevent wealth loss at every single stage. Section 2, the PPLI tax shelter. Now, trusts and holding companies, they've been around forever. But a recent Senate investigation shined a massive spotlight on a highly specific, very modern tool. It's called Private Placement Life Insurance, or PPLI for short. And listen, this is definitely not the life insurance your parents bought to cover the mortgage. The Senate committee found that PPLI acts as a highly customizable, tax-advantaged wrapper. It basically lets individuals invest in alternative assets. We're talking private equity, hedge funds, completely tax-free. It masquerades as regular life insurance, but fundamentally, it's a niche financial product that is completely unavailable to the middle class. So just how big is this system? Well, based on data pulled from just 7 leading providers, the domestic PPLI market acts as a tax shelter for a staggering $40 billion in face value. $40 billion. And keep in mind, that is just a baseline estimate. It doesn't even begin to factor in the massive offshore market. But here is the truly wild part about that number. That $40 billion, it's concentrated among roughly 3,000 Americans. PPLI represents a microscopic 0.003% of the total individual U.S. insurance market. To even get a foot in the door, you generally have to be an accredited investor or qualified purchaser, and the policy minimums usually require $1 to $2 million in upfront premium commitments. We are talking about an exclusive tier of clients with average net worths well over $100 million. Section 3, analyzing the pitch. Naturally, you might be wondering, how exactly do you sell such an exclusive tool? Well, the Senate committee actually managed to get their hands on private marketing pitch decks. Take this brochure from Prudential, one of the biggest players in the game. Right there in plain English, they're promoting a death benefit that is generally free from federal income taxes and freedom from annual taxation. The pitch is absolutely crystal clear. Use our insurance wrapper to totally bypass the tax drag that would normally eat away at your compounding investment growth over time. And it actually gets crazier. With a normal registered life insurance policy, you might get to pick from a couple of basic, boring mutual funds, right? But with PPLI, it's a whole different ballgame. The Prudential brochure explicitly advertises hedge funds as an underlying investment option. They are giving these ultra-wealthy clients carte blanche access to highly lucrative alternative asset classes, entirely shielded within the tax-free bubble of this insurance policy. Let's check out another market leader, Lombard International. Their marketing literally boasts about income tax-free asset transfers at death. They even outline a concrete case study, a 65-year-old client with a net worth of $50 million who is staring down some massive federal and state taxes. The proposed magic bullet? Invest through a PPLI policy to entirely eliminate the burden of taxes on all that investment growth. And the hard data from the Senate proves that these marketing pitches absolutely work. Look at the average death benefit, which, remember, means the tax-free payout going to heirs at these top firms. Lombard is sitting at an average of over $17 million per policy. Prudential is closing in on $28 million. And then there's a specialized firm called Investors Preferred. Their average policy face amount is a jaw-dropping $38.4 million. This is wealth transfer happening on an institutional scale. To make this whole machine run smoothly, the industry created this brilliant, circular ecosystem. Investment managers set up something called an insurance dedicated fund, or an IDF. Think of it as a clone fund. It perfectly replicates the manager's normal hedge fund strategy, but it is exclusively available to be placed inside these insurance wrappers. So the wealthy client buys the PPLI policy, funnels their premiums into their favorite manager's IDF, and boom, they get elite, top-tier hedge fund returns, but the gains compound completely tax-free. Section 4. Buy, Borrow, Die. So how does this all tie together in practice? The Senate report highlights that PPLI is basically the ultimate vehicle for a wealth preservation strategy known in the industry as buy, borrow, die. Here is the exact step-by-step mechanical flow. First, you buy a PPLI policy, stuff it with millions of dollars, and invest it in those highly lucrative clone funds. Second, as that money grows tax-free, you absolutely do not withdraw it because that would trigger a tax event. Instead, you borrow against the cash value of the policy at incredibly favorable interest rates to fund your lifestyle with untaxed cash. And finally, you die. The massive insurance death benefit swoops in, pays off all those loans, and the remaining tens of millions pass directly to your heirs completely free of income, gift, and estate taxes. The whole shebang. To really put this into perspective, we have to look at the math over time. Looking at a 30-year trajectory, if you compare a standard taxable account versus a PPLI account, the difference is staggering. A $10 million investment, dodging a roughly 48% combined tax rate, absolutely balloons to over $90 million inside the PPLI wrapper. That is a $54.6 million advantage, entirely because of the legal structure holding the asset. It's like a giant financial cheat code. Section 5. Preserving Generational Wealth. Now, as we zoom out from PPLI and look at the broader picture, we really have to ask, why do these wildly complex holding structures and tax shelters even exist in the first place? Well, the ultimate endgame is generational survival. While most of us are planning our finances in terms of months, years, or maybe looking ahead to retirement, the ultra-wealthy are quite literally planning in centuries. The psychological shift here is profound. They aren't merely earning wealth to consume it. They are establishing massive institutional frameworks like family offices, offshore networks, and these highly complex insurance wrappers to steward and protect that capital so it survives for 100 years or more, completely untouched by the natural erosion of taxes and legal risks. Which leaves us with this final lingering thought for today's explainer. As we've seen through the Senate's deep dive into PPLI and the broader architecture of fortune, the global game of wealth really isn't just about income. It asks a far more provocative question. Is there a fundamental difference between making money and owning the actual systems that keep it? The data strongly suggests there is. And once you see the blueprints of these wealth protection systems, you really can't unsee them. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. I hope it gave you a whole new perspective on how global capital actually operates. See you next time.